They hurt you, lied to you, laughed when you were down. But what if the strongest thing you could do is nothing at all? The world says fight back. The Stoics say rise so far above them, they can't even reach your shadow. Which one are you choosing? Revenge feels powerful until you realize it's just another chain. The question is, are you brave enough to break free and rise in silence? What if I told you that the greatest revenge isn't revenge at all? It's not anger. It's not a clever comeback. It's not even justice. The greatest revenge is rising so quietly, so powerfully, that the ones who once tried to break you now can't even reach you. They whisper your name like ghosts trying to haunt your peace, hoping their echo still matters. But you've gone silent, not because you're weak, but because you've outgrown the game. You've become untouchable. There's something the world doesn't talk about enough. Every second you spend thinking about payback is a second they still own a piece of you. And they don't deserve that. They don't deserve your energy, your attention, and they absolutely don't deserve to control your emotions. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't waste their precious time plotting revenge. They built lives so strong, so grounded in meaning and character that the ones who tried to hurt them became nothing more than footnotes in a much larger story. So the real question is, are you ready? Are you ready to stop reacting and start reclaiming your power? Are you ready to stop chasing justice and start constructing a life so radiant, so unbothered, that just your existence becomes a statement louder than any argument? Because in this video, you won't learn how to clap back. You won't learn how to make someone regret what they did. What you'll learn, if you're willing, is how to become so emotionally intelligent, so self-disciplined, and so devoted to your mission that they simply no longer matter. No more noise, no more bitterness, just power. Quiet, consistent, grounded power. Let's begin. Revenge, it sounds righteous. It feels intoxicating, like fire in your chest. That surge of "I'll show them, they won't get away with it." That delicious promise of justice. And when someone wounds you, betrays you, mocks you, that fire can seem like fuel. But here's the catch. Traditional revenge is a beautiful lie. It sells the illusion of power while quietly stealing your peace. Imagine someone insults you publicly. The instinct: snap back, humiliate them, hurt them like they hurt you. And for a moment, it feels like control. You've won. But then, what? You've now entangled your emotional state with someone who doesn't even deserve a mention in your narrative. You've abandoned your own standards of emotional mastery just to win a petty battle. That's not power, that's dependency. Because if your inner state your peace, your direction is always a reaction to them, then who's really in control? Marcus Aurelius said it perfectly. The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Don't stoop to their level, rise above it, shine in a different direction. But let's be honest, why does revenge feel so seductive? Why does it feel so natural? It's biology, pure, primal brain chemistry. When someone wrongs you, your amygdala, the brain's fight or flight command center, lights up. Adrenaline surges. Your body prepares for battle. But the amygdala doesn't care about wisdom. It doesn't care about your values, your vision, or your growth. It just wants you to react. And in that state, emotional intelligence vanishes. You're not thinking like a stoic. You're thinking like a wounded animal. This is where most people lose, not against their enemies, but against themselves. Because every petty comeback might sting the other person, but it wounds you more. It distracts you from your mission. It poisons your mental clarity. It ties your worth to someone else's approval. And worst of all, it keeps you emotionally bound to people who should have been left behind a long time ago. Let me give you a picture. Imagine holding a burning coal in your bare hand. waiting to throw it at someone who hurt you. You grip it tighter, waiting for them to walk by. But the longer you hold it, the more it burns your hand. That's what revenge is. That's what bitterness becomes. The Stoics knew a different path. They knew that real strength isn't found in retribution, it's found in restraint. Self-control is the true flex. Walking away without flinching, not because you're weak, but because you've evolved past the need for reaction. Epictetus said, "He who angers you, conquers you." So if you're still angry, they win. If you're still obsessed with getting back, they win. If you let their actions define your peace, they win. But when you stop playing the game ends. And make no mistake, your enemies want a reaction. They want to see that they still matter. They want to live rent-free in your mind. But when you go quiet, when you stop talking about them, when your life becomes so whole, so purposeful, so complete without them, that's when your absence becomes thunder. That's when your silence screams the loudest. Because silence isn't weakness. It's power and indifference. That's not cold. That's emotional mastery. You don't need revenge. You need elevation. Not to prove anything, but because the most powerful version of you isn't angry. They're focused on building something sacred, an empire of peace, of meaning, of unwavering self-worth. So before you draft your comeback post, before you rehearse that perfect gotcha line, before you waste another breath trying to get even, ask yourself, am I acting from pain or am I choosing from power? Because here's the truth, revenge keeps you stuck in the story they wrote for you. But discipline, that lets you write your own. Now let's get one thing clear. Winning doesn't look like clapping back. It doesn't look like proving a point. It doesn't even look like getting the last word. Real winning, the kind the Stoics pursued, means becoming someone so elevated, so internally grounded, so wrapped up in purpose, that the ones who wronged you can't even access you anymore. That's not ego, that's evolution. You see, most people are still trapped in emotional warfare, still fighting ghosts, still trying to prove their worth to the very people who discounted them. But here's the thing, if you need to prove you've won, you haven't. Truly powerful people don't announce victory. They embody it. They don't argue. They don't explain. They just rise. Let's pause for a moment. Think about the most powerful person you know. Not famous, not rich. Powerful, grounded, calm, quiet, resolute. They don't need to shout. Their presence does the talking. Because growth is the loudest revenge and the quietest one. Let's take a short detour. Picture someone who once doubted you. Maybe they laughed at your dream, mocked your potential, left you behind when you were still climbing. Now imagine your life 1 year later, 2 years, maybe 5. You've mastered your craft. You've built peace. You've cultivated clarity. You walk with grace. You speak with wisdom. And most of all, you no longer need their validation. You didn't rise to impress them. You rose because you refused to stay broken. That's Stoic. Revenge. It's not about hurting them. It's about building something so beautiful, so untouchable, that they simply fade into irrelevance. There's a quote that sums this up perfectly. The best revenge is to be nothing like those who harmed you, and everything like the person they could never become. They wanted to see you angry. Instead, they saw you win. Let's shift gears now, not into theory, but into tactics. Because rising above your enemies, your past, or your pain doesn't happen through wishful thinking. It happens through systems, through rituals, through daily decisions that build emotional strength one brick at a time. If you want to become untouchable, not in the mythical sense, but in the deeply grounded, Stoic sense, then you need structure. You need habits that sharpen your inner edge and make your outer world unshakable. Start simple. Wake up early. before the world starts pulling at your attention. Give yourself that quiet hour when the mind is clear and your will is strongest. Move your body, not for aesthetics but for discipline, for consistency, for the message it sends. I take care of my vessel because my mission demands energy. Read. Feed your mind, not with gossip, not with outrage, with wisdom, with literature that expands you, with ideas that challenge you to think, reflect, and grow. Surround yourself with people who lift you, not drain you. People who hold you accountable, not people who pull you into emotional quicksand. And perhaps most importantly, guard your mind. Eliminate distractions. Cut the noise. Refuse to give space to old stories, to fantasies of revenge, to mental reruns of what someone said or did. Every moment you spend locked in those memories is a minute stolen from your future. You're not here to relive drama. You're here to master your craft, your energy, your mission. Because when you build in silence, with zero drama, with no need to announce every milestone, something beautiful happens. You begin to radiate a presence, a quiet, magnetic strength that others can feel even when you say nothing. That's not revenge. That's real power. See, your enemies never expected you to rise. They expected you to beg, to break, to seek closure, to argue, to collapse. But instead, you disappeared into your purpose. You replaced anger with ambition. You left the battlefield, and you started building a kingdom. And that's what they can't handle. Because when you grow in silence, you force them to confront the one thing they never planned for: your evolution. Let me say this plainly: you don't owe anyone a dramatic exit. You don't owe them your anger. You don't need to prove them wrong. Just become someone they'll never have access to again. Let them watch you rise. Let them wonder where you went. Or better yet, let them no longer be part of the equation at all. That is victory. Now, let's talk about betrayal, about disrespect, about lies, about the kind of wounds that feel personal because they are. The kind of wounds that make you feel like something was taken from you. Dignity, trust, your sense of control. But here's a truth the Stoics would have embraced: when someone betrays you, what they're really doing is placing a bet there. Betting you'll break, that you'll fall apart, that you'll shrink into your pain and stay there. So how do you win that wager? You rise, quietly, consistently, without anger, without explanation. Because excellence can't be stolen, not by gossip, not by sabotage, not by betrayal. And excellence, that's the only language they truly understand. When you operate at your highest level, mentally sharp, emotionally calm, physically strong, spiritually anchored, you dismantle every lie they told themselves about you. You silence the noise. You expose the envy. You crush the doubt, not by reacting but by outgrowing them. That's Stoicism in motion. Virtues per actum, excellence through action. Epictetus didn't say tell them who you are. He said, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. This isn't ancient fluff, it's a high-performance principle. Because when you stop explaining and start becoming, when your identity begins to speak louder than your voice, that's when the world takes notice. And that's when the petty games stop. You no longer get pulled into drama. You no longer need applause. You no longer chase validation. You start commanding silent respect. Let me ask you this. What do you think hurts a betrayer more, your outrage or your elevation? They don't want you to figure this out, that the best revenge is not performance, it's progress. Most people only understand the outcomes, your collapse or your excellence. And when collapse isn't an option, excellence becomes your only response. So build your body until it radiates discipline. Build your mind until it's untouchable by chaos. Build your mission until it wakes you up in the morning with fire. Build your peace until no outside argument can penetrate it. And do it all not for them but in spite of them, because the goal isn't to prove your worth. It's to become so valuable, they no longer deserve a mention in your story. Let's get even more brutally honest. Do you think Marcus Aurelius had time to argue with petty people? To explain himself to every critic or liar? To clap back? He ruled an empire. He wrote about stillness and virtue in the midst of war. He practiced restraint not because he was passive but because he was powerful. That's the executive mindset. That's emotional mastery. That's choosing legacy over ego. Here's something the Stoics knew long before Instagram quotes and TikTok. Mantras. Your habits tell the real story. When your discipline speaks for you. When your rituals become your identity. When your presence shifts the energy in a room. Before you say a word they notice. Even the ones who pretend they don't. That's why excellence stings. Because it reminds them they couldn't break. You didn't collapse. You didn't beg. You didn't play their game. You transcended it. And that's the greatest sting of all. Because while they were busy spinning stories, you were writing your next chapter in silence. In focus, in peace. That's the real mic drop. That's Stoic revenge. Not screaming louder. Not slamming the door. Not demanding closure. Just becoming someone they can no longer touch. And here's where the real shift happens. When you live at this level, not in theory, but in action, you stop needing revenge. You stop wanting it. You stop wasting your inner world on their memory. Because your life now is to full. Your spirit to occupied. Your purpose to vital. So you build, you rise, you evolve, and they fade, not because they disappeared, but because they stopped. Mattering. At some point, you have to make a decision. Do you want to keep replaying the scene where they hurt you? Or do you want to start building the next chapter where they don't even exist? Because here's the truth. Your pain is real. Your anger is valid. But holding onto that pain like a badge of honor, that doesn't make you brave. That just keeps you stuck. The Stoics taught that we are not what happens to us, we are what we choose to become in response. And every day you wake up and let their memory dictate your mood, your focus, your energy. You're letting them write your story. Enough. There comes a moment where you have to say, I'm done rehearsing this pain. I'm done arguing with people in my head who don't even deserve to be in my life. I'm done spending energy defending a worth that was never up for debate. Because real healing isn't about fixing the past. It's about no longer dragging it into your future. You want to know what the most powerful boundary is? It's not confrontation. It's not the perfect monologue where you tell them exactly how much they hurt you. It's distance. It's silence. It's absence. It's walking away not out of pride but out of clarity. Because you finally realize they don't deserve a front row seat to my life anymore. And you don't say that with bitterness. You say it with peace. Because the moment you truly believe, that is the moment you're free. Let them wonder. Let them gossip. Let them twist the story. Because while they're stuck replaying the last argument, you're outliving the next chapter. And here's where the Stoic path gets beautifully radical. You don't owe your pain to anyone, not the person who caused it, not the crowd waiting for your reaction, not even the past version of you who once believed they deserved a second chance. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself freedom. You owe yourself the life that exists beyond the wound. Let's break a myth right now. Carrying pain is not a form of loyalty. Too many of us confuse suffering with strength. We think, if I let go too quickly, it means they got away with it. But the truth, they already got away with it the moment they wounded you and you started building your identity around that pain. There's a difference between healing and holding on. Healing is choosing yourself every single day. Holding on is choosing them over and over again in the name of justice or closure. That's not healing. That's self-sacrifice disguised as honor. One of the deepest teachings of Stoicism is this: self-mastery. Your thoughts, your peace, your emotional state, these belong to you, not to your enemies, not to your critics, not to your past, not to your trauma. So every time you replay what happened, every time you let that story hijack your nervous system again, you're giving them free rent in a house they never built. You're letting someone who doesn't even think about you anymore live inside your mind, like a ghost haunting your clarity. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That quote isn't just something to admire, it's something to embody. What does it look like in practice? It looks like waking up and refusing to give your first thoughts to what hurt you. It looks like saying, "Yes, that happened, but I'm choosing to build something greater anyway." It looks like redirecting your focus, reclaiming your mental real estate, no longer giving your soul to a story that no longer serves it. And it's not about suppression. It's not about pretending everything is okay. It's about making a decision, a high-performance, emotionally intelligent decision to invest your energy into what's next, not what's broken. So how do you stop? Not by pretending you're healed, not by numbing the pain, but by shifting your focus. By choosing clarity over chaos, purpose over pettiness, peace over performance. You stop talking about them. You stop explaining yourself. You stop chasing justice from people who don't even understand accountability. You choose to heal, not because it's easy, but because you're finally tired of bleeding for someone who never even asked how deep the wound went. You stop waiting for them to see your worth, because you finally see it. And that's enough. That is your quiet revolution. And yes, it's quiet. Not loud, not dramatic, not public. Because when you truly become untouchable, you don't need applause, you don't need witnesses, you don't need a speech, you just need peace. Let's talk about emotional intelligence for a second. Emotional intelligence isn't just about staying calm. It's not about never getting angry. It's about knowing when to walk away. It's about knowing when something or someone has become too expensive for your energy. It's about protecting your peace like a sacred currency. The moment you stop trying to prove your value and instead start embodying it, that's when you become unstoppable. You no longer chase closure. You become your own closure. You no longer need revenge. You walk in results. You no longer beg to be seen. You see yourself. This is what mental toughness actually looks like. Not walls, not arrogance, not "I don't care." True toughness is quiet. It's intentional. It's knowing where the door is and having the wisdom to walk through it without slamming it shut. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone lied to you, betrayed you, disrespected you, used your kindness, and they expected you to stay. They expected you to keep giving, to keep waiting, to keep hoping. Most people in your shoes would wait for an apology, some form of justice, some moment that finally makes it all feel okay. But a Stoic knows the truth. The apology you're waiting for will never be as healing as the decision to walk away without it. You don't need them to regret it. You don't need them to get it. You don't need them to feel what you felt. You just need to see what you need and give it to yourself. That is healing. That is power. That is emotional sovereignty. Sometimes the strongest thing you'll ever do is nothing. No reaction, no defense, no final word. Just distance. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to prove your worth is the moment you finally own it. You're not here to win arguments. You're here to win your life. You're not here to teach someone else a lesson. You're here to master your own peace. You're not here to wait for closure. You're here to create clarity. And maybe, just maybe, you'll look back and realize the best revenge was never revenge at all. It was the life you built when you finally stopped waiting for someone else to understand your value. That's the Stoic way, not to escape the pain, but to outgrow it. Let's talk now about the high road. You've heard the phrase, right? Take the high road. It sounds noble, like something we should do, but let's be honest. In the moment when someone lies about you, humiliates you, takes advantage of your kindness, the high road can feel like the last place you want to be. Because the high road is quiet. It's lonely. There are no crowds cheering you on, no standing ovation, no mic drop moment. And sometimes it feels like you're letting them win. But here's the truth: the high road isn't about letting them win. It's about deciding you don't even want to play their game anymore. The Stoics weren't interested in revenge. They weren't obsessed with clapping back. They were focused on something far more difficult and far more powerful: mastery of the self. So what is the high road, really? It's the decision to protect your energy, even when your ego wants to explode. It's the pause before the reaction. It's silence in a world screaming for drama. And above all, it's the strategy of the wise. Let's break this down. 1. The high road begins with self-worth. When someone disrespects you, lies to you, or tries to tear you down, your first instinct might be to fight to defend yourself, to make them see how wrong they were. That's human, that's natural. But what's underneath that desire? Often, it's the hope that if they just get it, if they just admit it, you'll feel okay again. That if they finally apologize, your heart will unclench. But let's ask a tough question. Do you really need them to validate your worth in order for you to believe in it? The high road says, no, I don't. Because when you truly value yourself, their approval becomes optional. Their recognition becomes irrelevant. Their opinion, background noise. You no longer need their apology to be at peace. And that's power. 2. The high road requires delayed gratification. Taking the low road, lashing out, making a scene, saying something you'll later regret. That gives you a rush, a little dopamine hit, a surge of I showed them, but it fades fast. And then comes the emotional hangover. Stoicism is about the long game. It's about cultivating inner alignment, not chasing short-term wins. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." That's the high road in action. Be the example. Live the standard. Let your presence do the talking. You don't need to win the internet. You need to win your peace. 3. The high road makes you untouchable. Let's say someone is trying to provoke you. They want your reaction. They want the fight. And instead, you don't give it to them. You stay composed, calm, clear. That silence, that stillness, that lack of chaos, it shakes people. Because we live in a world where emotional reactivity is the norm. People are addicted to conflict. Outrage is currency. So when you step back and say nothing, not because you're afraid, but because you've evolved beyond it, people notice. Even if they don't say it out loud, they feel it. Your silence becomes a mirror, reflecting back their noise. And in that moment, you're no longer just a person. They see you as a force, a presence, a leader. 4. The high road is strategic, not passive. Let's be clear, Stoicism is not about being a doormat. It's not about letting people walk all over you. It's not about suppressing every emotion and calling it maturity. It's about intention. It's about clarity. It's about choosing where to spend your energy, and more importantly, where not to. Sometimes, the most powerful move you can make is no move at all. Other times, the right move is a boundary. A firm, direct, calm statement. This is not okay, and I won't participate in it. No drama, no tantrum, just clarity. Elite performers, spiritual leaders, high-level thinkers, they all share this trait. They don't engage with pettiness, not because they're cold, but because their vision is too valuable to waste on chaos. Their mission is too sacred. 5. Your success becomes their silence. Here's the part nobody talks about. The people who hurt you, they're watching, quietly, carefully, maybe from a distance, maybe pretending not to care, but they notice. They see the life you're building, the peace you're cultivating, the way you've distanced yourself from drama and grown into something solid, radiant, and unshakable. And it stings, not because you're trying to hurt them, but because you've become someone they can't reach anymore. Someone who no longer needs them, thinks of them, or includes them in your story. That's the real mic drop. The Stoics knew this. The highest form of revenge is indifference. The kind that doesn't require an audience. The kind that isn't fueled by hate, but by elevation. So ask yourself this. What would your life look like if you stayed on the high road? Not just for a day, not just when it was convenient, but always. How much mental bandwidth would you free up? How much more powerful could your presence become if you stopped wasting energy on what doesn't grow you? Once you taste the freedom of choosing peace over pettiness, purpose over pride, wisdom over reaction, you don't go back. You can't go back, because the moment you start walking that road, something shifts in you. Your standards rise, your boundaries get sharper, your sense of self becomes non-negotiable. And those who once disturbed your peace, they become irrelevant. Not because they disappeared, but because you evolved. Let's close this section with a truth you already know. In your soul, you don't rise by fighting petty battles. You rise by choosing not to play. You don't win by proving your enemies wrong. You win by becoming so right with yourself that no argument is even necessary. And when you live this way, every step on that high road becomes a brick in the foundation of a life that no one can tear down. So the next time your ego whispers, clap back, show them, make them pay. Take a breath, remember who you are, and rise quietly. Because silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. And in the Stoic world, strategy always wins. There's something deeply ironic about revenge. We chase it thinking it will give us power, control, resolution. But the more you pursue it, the more powerless you become. Why? Because revenge is a reaction, and anytime you're in reaction mode, you're no longer in command. You're no longer grounded. You've handed over your focus, your clarity, your growth to someone else's behavior. That's the paradox the Stoics saw long before psychology gave it a name. The more we obsess over those who wronged us, the more control they continue to have even in their absence. You're not breaking free. You're tethering yourself even tighter. And here's the hardest pill to swallow. Most of the people you're mad at aren't even thinking about you. They've moved on. They're not losing sleep. They're not replaying the scene. You are. You're the one still carrying the weight. That's why Stoicism emphasizes the ultimate act of power, not retaliation, but redirection. Taking the energy you once spent on outrage and pouring it into your purpose instead. Because the goal isn't just emotional maturity, it's freedom. You want to rise? Good. But rise with direction. Rise with intention. Rise with systems that make your growth inevitable and your peace untouchable. Let's talk about those systems for a moment. When life gets hard, when betrayal cuts deep, when humiliation blindsides, your habits are what keep you grounded, not your feelings, not your willpower. Your routines. So build them. Build your morning like it matters, because it does. It sets the tone for the rest of your day. Don't check your phone. Don't scroll for distractions. Go inward, write, meditate, move, read. Do something that reminds you of your own power before the world tries to distract you from it. Build your environment. Eliminate the noise. Clear the digital clutter. Remove the emotional debris. Surround yourself with people who reflect your future, not your past. Those who challenge your standards, not coddle your wounds. Build your mission, whatever it is. Don't just float through life reacting to it. Architect your vision. Define your next moves. Get strategic. Be relentless. Because when you get serious about your growth, your peace becomes non-negotiable. And suddenly, revenge starts to feel small, like a distraction. Like an old operating system you've outgrown. Because now you're too focused, too engaged, too aligned, to care about who's watching or what they're thinking. That's how you know you've started to win, when your life becomes too full of purpose to accommodate petty battles. Let's take this even deeper. When someone wrongs you, when they betray your trust, use your vulnerability against you, or lie about your character, they're making a bet. They're betting that their behavior has more influence over your future than your own decisions do. They're betting you'll collapse. They're betting you'll spiral. They're betting that they can shape your identity through pain. So what do? You rise, not to prove them wrong, but to show yourself what's right. You build a life so fortified by discipline, clarity, and peace that the wound becomes irrelevant, not because it wasn't real, but because it no longer defines you. Because, here's the part no one tells you, the real win is not that they regret what they did. The real win is that you no longer care if they do. You've become unavailable to that frequency of drama. You've become allergic to those old dynamics. You've become immune to the chaos, not because it stopped trying to reach you, but because you've elevated above it. You no longer vibrate at the same emotional level. The same wounds don't penetrate. The same bait doesn't work. The same insults don't land. You've grown past the game. That's Stoicism in motion. That's what it means to be untouchable. Let's turn our attention now to something even more misunderstood than revenge-karma. How many times have you heard someone say, "Don't worry, karma will get them"? It feels comforting, like cosmic justice is on the way, like the universe is secretly keeping score. But here's the Stoic truth. Waiting for karma is just another form of obsession. It's a trap. It keeps your energy anchored to the person who wronged you. And every time you check to see if they're suffering yet, you give away your power all over again. That's not freedom. That's emotional imprisonment disguised as spirituality. Let the universe do what it does. You focus on building. Because when you truly release the need for revenge, karma, or vindication, you finally get to rise without baggage. Here's a radical thought. Maybe the best karma isn't watching them fall. Maybe it's rising so high they can't even find the ladder anymore. Let's get tactical again. Every day, you're faced with dozens of small moments where you can either stay in the loop of pain or opt out. Someone brings up the past, do you take the bait? Someone insults you online, do you defend yourself? Someone ghosts you, do you seek closure? Or do you pause, breathe, and remember, I am not obligated to respond just because someone demands my energy? The Stoics had a phrase, keep your attention focused entirely on what is truly your own concern. Epictetus, and that's the line, that's your sword. Because not everything that disturbs you deserves your response. Not everything needs an explanation. Not every betrayal requires a breakdown. Your peace is not a performance. It's a decision. So, here's the blueprint. Decide today, right now, that you're no longer going to bleed for people who laughed while you bled. Decide that your story moves forward from here. Decide that your silence isn't weakness. It's your shield. Decide that your next move isn't revenge, it's rebirth. Because when you do that, when you really do that, you'll wake up one morning and feel something new. Not anger, not sadness, not even relief. You'll feel light. Because, for the first time in a long time, you're no longer dragging a past that was never worthy of your future. And That is freedom, forgiveness. Even just hearing the word can stir something inside you: resentment, resistance, maybe even guilt. It's one of those concepts that feels holy on paper, but heavy in real life. Because somewhere along the way, forgiveness became misunderstood. People started to see it as surrender, as weakness, as letting someone get away with what they did. But Stoic forgiveness is different. It's not soft, it's not sentimental, it's strategic. It's not about letting them off the hook, it's about unhooking yourself from the weight that's been dragging you down. Because here's the truth: when you don't forgive, you stay tied to the offense. You stay energetically tethered to the very person you say you want to forget. It's like carrying a wound that could heal, but instead of letting it scab, you keep picking at it again and again, hoping that maybe this time they'll notice. They won't, but your peace will. Forgiveness in the Stoic sense isn't for them. It's for the version of you that's ready to move on. It's not about approval. It's about release. It's not about erasing the past. It's about reclaiming your present. Let's explore what Stoic forgiveness really means, because it might just be the most powerful decision you ever make. 1. Forgiveness is a solo act of strength. You don't need their apology. You don't need a conversation. You don't need permission or closure or validation. Forgiveness is something you do in silence. For you, it's walking away from the imaginary courtroom you've been stuck in, arguing a case no one else is even attending. You've spent too many nights rehearsing the same defense, replaying the scene, rewriting the ending. But it's time to leave the courthouse and enter the next chapter. You don't need to win the case. You need to reclaim your clarity. 2. You don't need to forget in order to forgive. Forget the forgive and forget cliché. Stoicism doesn't ask you to become naive. It asks you to become wise. Wisdom says, learn the lesson, keep the boundary, but let go of the obsession. Forgiveness says, I'm not pretending it didn't happen. I'm just choosing not to carry it anymore. You can forgive and still never speak to them again. You can forgive and still block them. You can forgive and still build a new life they'll never be part of. Forgiveness doesn't mean inviting them back. It means releasing the emotional toxin they left behind. 3. Unforgiveness is a slow poison. At first, holding onto anger feels powerful. It makes you feel like you still have control, that by staying mad, you're staying strong. But that's a lie. Resentment doesn't preserve your strength. It slowly depletes it. It drains your creativity. It hijacks your focus. It interrupts your sleep. It filters your relationships. It clouds your decision-making. If revenge is the illusion of power, then unforgiveness is the illusion of protection. But neither makes you safer, neither makes you whole. Only healing does that. And healing starts with release. 4. Forgiveness is self-mastery in action. The strongest people you know aren't the ones who bark back at every insult. They're not the ones constantly looking for the next argument or the perfect comeback. They're the ones who know that attention is currency, that energy is sacred, that peace is expensive, and they don't trade any of it for ego points or temporary satisfaction. Forgiveness clears your mental RAM. It gives you bandwidth for creativity instead of rumination, for growth instead of grudges, for clarity instead of chaos. It's not softness, it's strategy. 5. You can forgive without ever letting them back in. Forgiveness doesn't mean restoration. It doesn't mean reconnection. It doesn't mean trust. Trust is earned. Forgiveness is given, but not to them, to yourself. You forgive so that you're not carrying someone else's decisions inside your nervous system. You forgive because dragging that wound into your future is no longer an option. Forgiveness is saying, I'm done letting this story narrate my life. You keep the wisdom, you keep the dignity, you keep the boundary, but you let go of the obsession to be understood. to be vindicated, to be proven right. That's emotional liberation or 6. The Stoic doesn't just forgive, they transcend. The Stoics didn't believe in preaching peace. They believed in becoming peace. They didn't beg the world to be fair. They showed up anyway with discipline, with composure, with courage. Forgiveness, to the Stoic, is not surrender. It's transcendence. It's rising so high that small minds and petty offenses no longer touch you. It's walking so deeply in your purpose that their past actions no longer echo in your present. Because when you truly forgive, not as an obligation, but as an act of sovereignty, you remove them from your system completely. They no longer get to influence your choices. They no longer get to shape your identity. They no longer get to write your narrative. You become free. Let me say something that might shift your perspective forever. Forgiveness is not for the other person. It's for the version of you that's ready to stop surviving and start living. It's for the you that refuses to carry pain into the next season of your life. It's for the you that values peace over drama, presence over nostalgia, power over performance. And no, they don't have to deserve it. You do. You've suffered enough. And when you finally choose forgiveness, not the emotional performance of it, but the inner liberation of it, you sever the last tie they had to you. You don't become soft, you become sovereign. And suddenly, you feel it. The weight lifts, the anger fades, the obsession dissolves, not because they changed, but because you did. So here you are, not as a victim, not even as a survivor, but as someone who chose mastery over madness. You didn't fight back. You didn't scream. You didn't try to prove yourself. You just became someone they can no longer reach. And in the end, that is the best revenge. Because while they stayed stuck in cycles, spinning in small stories, you built something untouchable, a life anchored in strength, a soul untouchable by petty minds. A presence so centered that your silence becomes your thunder. Let them wonder. Let them whisper. Let them wait for the reaction that never comes. Because when your identity is protected by spiritual discipline and emotional intelligence, you won't know when your pain, only your progress. Now ask yourself, what would it look like to live from that place? Starting today, not tomorrow. Not next year. Today. What decision could you make right now that says, I'm done letting pain steer the wheel. I'm done waiting to be understood. I'm done keeping people in my life through the chains of bitterness. It's time. Time to choose peace. Time to choose purpose. Time to choose you. Because that's not surrender. That's sovereignty. Now we've arrived at the quiet turning point, the place where you start moving. Not from emotion, but from vision. Where you begin crafting a life not in response to betrayal, but in response to purpose. This is where true transformation happens. Because what most people never realize is this: revenge, retaliation, and resentment are all reactive energies. They keep you orbiting around someone else's actions, constantly responding, constantly triggered, constantly defining yourself by what happened to you. But the moment you shift from reactivity to creation, everything changes. The moment you stop asking, how could they, and start asking, what can I build from this? You stop being a character in their story, and you become the author of your own. You no longer run from pain. You mine it. You extract the lesson. You convert it into wisdom, into discipline, into resolve. That is Stoicism at its finest, and that's where your evolution truly begins. Let's get clear on this next level, because if you've been walking with us this far, you've already started shedding layers, old narratives, old wounds, old responses. But now it's time to replace them with strategy. So let's talk about how to become unshakable. How to build a foundation so firm that no betrayal, no rumor, no judgment can shake the life you're building. It starts with 3 pillars: discipline, devotion, and detachment. 1. Discipline. The structure of sovereignty. Discipline is not punishment. It's self-respect in motion. It's the realization that you are your most valuable asset, and how you treat yourself daily determines what kind of life you'll have. Wake up with intention. Don't just let the day happen to you, own it. Create morning rituals that are not dependent on motivation, but on commitment. Because motivation will fail you. Discipline won't. Move your body, not because it looks good in the mirror, but because it sharpens your mind. Eat with care. Speak with clarity. Breathe with awareness. Every decision you make that honors your future self is a vote for the life you're building. When you're disciplined, you don't need revenge. Your presence is proof enough. 2. Devotion. The flame that doesn't burn. Out of discipline is the structure. Devotion is the fire that fills it. What are you devoted to? Not what looks good on social media, not what impresses others, but what moves you. What drives your spirit? What makes your soul feel alive? Maybe it's your craft, your family, your philosophy, your mission. Whatever it is, make it sacred. Devotion brings focus, and focus kills distraction. When you're fully devoted to what you're building, you don't have time to retaliate. You're too busy creating. You don't care what they're saying, what they're doing, who they're trying to become. You're consumed by something deeper. That kind of energy is rare, and anything rare becomes powerful. 3. Detachment. The freedom of letting go. Here's the part most people miss. You can have discipline. You can have devotion. But if you're still emotionally attached to the past, to validation, to people who never honored your worth, you're still stuck. Detachment doesn't mean apathy. It means clarity. It means you can still care, but you're no longer ruled by reaction. You can feel, but you don't collapse. You can love, but you don't beg. You can see the person who once betrayed you and feel nothing but a distant respect for the version of yourself who survived it. That is freedom. And when you live from this place of discipline, devotion, and detachment, your power becomes unshakable. People can doubt you, dismiss you, even try to destroy your reputation, but it won't matter, because your peace no longer depends on their opinion. Your identity no longer wavers in their presence. You've stopped asking, "Why did they do this?" and started asking, "What can I create that makes their actions irrelevant?" Let's bring this home with a simple but piercing question. What if you never got the apology? What if they never owned it? What if they moved on, built a new life, pretended it never happened? Could you still be okay? The Stoics would say, yes, if you've done the work, because your healing was never supposed to depend on someone else's accountability. It was always about you, about who you're becoming, in spite of it, because of it. That's the shift, and once it clicks, you start to walk differently. You speak less but with more weight. You don't waste time explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You don't look back unless it's to see how far you've come. That's what happens when you stop seeking revenge and start seeking results. You outgrow the need to be right. You outgrow the need to be seen. You even outgrow the need to be understood, because you're too focused on becoming something undeniable. Let me share something with you, something most people don't realize until it's too late. Peace isn't found, it's built. It's built every time you say no to drama, every time you delete the message you wanted to send, every time you choose stillness over noise, every time you resist the urge to post, to prove, to plead. Peace is not the absence of conflict, it's the presence of purpose. So build it. Brick by brick, thought by thought, choice by choice. Not because they deserve your forgiveness, but because you deserve your freedom. And once you choose that, once you make peace a requirement instead of a luxury, nothing and no one can touch you, you become a different force altogether. You become untouchable. There's something sacred about living in a way that needs no explanation, that no grand speeches, no final clapbacks, no dramatic exits, just the quiet, unmistakable presence of someone who has transcended the noise. That's what happens when you stop seeking justice from others and start creating justice within yourself. When you stop waiting to be redeemed and begin walking in the reality that you were always whole. Let's be honest, most people don't expect you to rise. They expect you to beg, to break, to spiral, to chase closure, to keep the cycle spinning. Why? Because your pain feeds their ego. Your reaction validates their manipulation. Your confusion confirms their control. So when you don't respond, when you go silent, when you vanish into your discipline, when you disappear into your mission, that's when they lose everything. They tried to control. The silence, it isn't just quiet. It's a revolution. It says, you no longer have access to my mind. And in a world addicted to chaos, your stillness becomes unbearable to them. Let them sit with the last thing they said. Let them circle the last moment they tried to provoke you. Let them feel the weight of your absence while you step into your presence. Because here's what most people won't admit. They don't want closure. They want continued access. They don't want to understand you. They want to manage your emotions, just enough to keep you coming back. But when you finally decide that your peace is more important than being right, the game ends, and you walk away not wounded, but wiser. Not because they deserved forgiveness, but because you deserved peace. That's when everything begins to shift. You no longer waste time proving anything to anyone. You stop asking, do they miss me? And start asking, how far can I go without the weight of this pain? And the answer, farther than you ever thought possible. Let's revisit a truth Marcus Aurelius etched into history. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That isn't just a quote, it's a lifestyle. It's the way of the Stoic. It means you can stop trying to fix what you didn't break. You can stop trying to get people to see a truth they're committed to denying. You can stop dragging pain into every room you enter, hoping someone will validate it. Because once you see your own worth, everything else becomes optional. Let's take this further. Imagine walking into a room and not needing to prove anything, not needing to dress up your pain, not needing to perform strength, just being quiet, clear, present. That's what real healing looks like. It's not loud. It's not theatrical. It's not poetic. It's steady. It's sovereign. It's free. People might still misunderstand you. They might gossip, speculate, project. Let them. Your job isn't to control the narrative. Your job is to control your character. Your job is to stay in integrity, regardless of what story they tell. That's the kind of peace no one can touch. And let's be honest, when you stop trying to win people back, you realize you were never truly connected to them. You were connected to your hope of who they could be. Once that hope dies, clarity is born. So don't be afraid to grieve the dream, to mourn the potential. But don't go back to something just because it once felt like home. Growth is uncomfortable, but going backward, that's a self-inflicted wound. Sometimes, the next level of your life will cost you the last version of yourself. And that's okay. It means you're evolving. It means you're stepping into alignment. Now let's shift from healing to building, because you weren't meant to live in recovery mode forever. At some point, you stop surviving betrayal and start designing legacy. So what does that look like? It means you build your life like a fortress. You choose friends like a strategist. You protect your energy like a minimalist. You cultivate your mind like a philosopher. And you move through life like a leader, not a victim, not a reactor, not someone waiting to be chosen. You become the one who chooses. That's what Stoicism is all about, not perfection, but power. Power over the only domain that truly matters, your inner world. So what are you building? That's not a rhetorical question, it's everything. What are you building so that their betrayal becomes irrelevant? What habits, systems, rituals, and environments are you crafting to ensure you never again live at the mercy of someone else's character? Because if you're not building something, you're rebuilding the past. And if you're not intentional with your direction, you'll end up walking in circles. This is your invitation to stop spinning. Pick up the pen. Write the new story. Build the next version of you with care, with precision, with clarity. The kind of you who no longer looks back, who no longer explains, who no longer reacts, who no longer needs to be understood because you understand yourself. Let that become your new rhythm. Every workout, a declaration of discipline. Every silent morning, a ritual of self-respect. Every boundary you set, a reminder that your time is sacred. Every decision to walk away, a signal that you have finally remembered your worth. And the best part, you don't need to post about it. You don't need to broadcast it. You don't need to let them know. Your life will speak for you. And when it does, it won't be loud. It will be undeniable. That's how you become untouchable. Not because you fought harder, but because you rose higher. So here you are, standing at the edge of everything you used to be and everything you're about to become. This isn't just about letting go of a grudge. This isn't just about forgetting someone who hurt you. This is about something far more powerful, reclaiming your agency. Because what most people don't realize is that pain, if you let it, can become an identity. You start to see yourself as the one who was wronged, the one who was betrayed, the one who carries the scar. And here's the problem with that. It chains your future to your past. It makes your strength a reaction instead of a choice. You're not strong because of who hurt you. You're strong because of what you chose after they did. That's the Stoic way. You don't let trauma define your trajectory. You don't let pain write your plan. You rise consciously, consistently, not in spite of what happened, but because you decided that nothing and no one would be the limit to your potential. Let's bring this into practical action, because philosophy without embodiment is just noise. So here are 5 principles, 5 quiet, grounded truths you can build on, starting today. 1. Not everyone deserves a seat at the table of your mind. Imagine your thoughts as a long banquet table. Every seat is precious. And yet, we let ghosts sit there. Old betrayals, past insults, memories of people who are no longer even present except in our inner dialogue. The Stoics knew better. Epictetus said, "Keep your attention focused entirely on what is truly your own concern." Translation: don't waste headspace on those who didn't earn it. Audit your thoughts. Who's been sitting at your table without contributing anything to your peace? It's time to excuse them. Make room for new guests. Gratitude, vision, discipline, clarity. You are the gatekeeper of your mind. Choose wisely who you allow to stay. 2. Reaction is a tax on your greatness. Every time you react from anger, from ego, from the need to prove, you pay a tax. You sacrifice your time, your energy, your emotional bandwidth. And here's the cruel irony. They often don't even notice. You're losing sleep, writing imaginary letters, crafting the perfect speech, and they're out there living, unaware or unbothered. So stop taxing your greatness. You don't need to flinch every time someone throws shade. You don't need to clarify the truth every time someone spreads a lie. The truth doesn't beg for attention. It just is. Let your life do the explaining. Because when you're truly untouchable, your silence becomes the loudest sound in the room. 3. Distance is a declaration. You don't always need to block them. You don't always need to unfollow, but you do need to move. Because staying emotionally entangled with someone just to keep them close enough to possibly change is not strategy, it's self-sabotage. Distance isn't cold, it's clear. It says, I respect myself too much to stay stuck. And here's what most people forget. Closure is a myth. Real closure doesn't come from their apology. It comes from your decision to close the door, whether they knock again or not. So don't wait for the last word. Don't wait for understanding. Just walk. And don't look back unless it's to appreciate how far you've come. 4. Results are louder than revenge. Think about the people who once hurt you. What would devastate them more, your angry response or your unstoppable growth? Because let's be honest, some of them wanted you to collapse. That was the plan. That was the script they wrote. You falling apart meant they were right. But when you build anyway, when you turn your pain into a routine, your heartbreak into precision, your betrayal into fuel, that's not just winning, that's rewriting the narrative. And the best part, you don't even have to mention their name. You just rise. You walk into new rooms. You speak in new circles. You operate at a new frequency. And they fade not because they're gone, but because you've transcended them. Let your results echo in rooms they'll never enter. That's the kind of silence they'll never forget. 5. You are not what happened to you. Let's end with a core Stoic truth, something Marcus Aurelius lived by. You are not disturbed by things, but by your perception of them. Yes, the wound was real. Yes, the betrayal hurt. Yes, the loss was heavy. But none of that gets to define you unless you give it permission. You are not the pain. You are not the insult. You are not the victim of their choices. You are what you choose to become after all of it. And here's the truth that will set you free. You don't need to carry the story anymore. You don't need to keep remembering the day you broke. Start remembering the day you got back up. Start remembering the moment you took your power back, not with vengeance, not with spite, but with silence, with vision, with quiet, steady progress. Because that's what this was always about. Not revenge, not rage, not justice. But becoming someone they can no longer reach. Becoming someone you can finally be proud of. Becoming untouchable, not because you built walls, but because you built character. So here's the invitation. Stop seeking the final word. Start crafting your final form. And remember this: when the story is over, and the dust has settled, and the echoes of drama fade, all that remains is who you became in the process. Let that be the legacy. Let that be the lesson. And let them watch from a distance while you rise in peace. There's a quiet moment after the anger has settled, after the urge to retaliate has passed, where you're left with just yourself. No applause, no revenge, no grand finale. Just you and your choices. And in that moment, you realize this was never about them. It was always about who you would become on the other side of the storm. That's the power of Stoicism. It's not just a way to endure pain. It's a way to transform it. To turn heartbreak into purpose. To turn rejection into redirection. To turn every insult, every lie, every disappointment into fuel for something far greater than payback, evolution. Because the truth is, the world will keep throwing things at you. People will test you. Life will shake you. Ego will tempt you. And you have to decide every single day what kind of person you want to be in response. Let's ground this in clarity. We've talked about silence. We've talked about detachment. We've talked about forgiveness. Now let's talk about legacy. Because ultimately, that's what this all leads to: not a moment of triumph, but a life of substance. And legacy is not something you build when you're older. It's not a plaque, a monument, or a trophy. Legacy is how you live. It's how you carry yourself. It's the habits no one sees. The values you refuse to compromise. The character you show when no one's watching. You don't need to be rich, famous, or powerful to leave a legacy. You just need to be consistent. Consistent in how you love, how you lead, how you respond, how you rise. Let me give you 5 questions, 5 filters you can use to shape your life moving forward, not from reaction, but from intention. 1. Who am I becoming when no one is watching? This is the real question, because your character isn't revealed in public moments. It's forged in private ones. When you're alone with your thoughts, when no one will find out, when you could take the shortcut, the low road, the easy win. But don't. That's who you really are. Are you becoming someone your future self will respect? Are you becoming someone your younger self would admire? Strip away the audience, the image, the need to prove. Who are you really? Let that answer shape your actions. 2. What energy am I bringing into the room? Your presence matters. Before you say a word, people can feel you. Are you bringing stillness or chaos, peace or performance? Is your energy clean, or are you leaking bitterness and pain everywhere you go? Be honest. If you want to build a life that's magnetic, not just impressive, you have to take responsibility for your energy. That doesn't mean you're perfect. It means you're aware, because your frequency is your foundation, and your peace, that's your power. Point 3. Am I feeding what fuels me or what drains me? This is one of the most important distinctions you'll ever make. Are you spending time scrolling through people who don't inspire you? Are you revisiting conversations that only reopen wounds? Are you ruminating on people who have already exited your life? Or are you reading things that sharpen your mind? Spending time with people who challenge you, building something that will outlive the pain. Everything you consume is either planting seeds or poisoning the soil. You can't build a high-level life on low-level habits. Choose wisely. 4. Is my silence coming from wisdom or fear? We've talked about silence as a weapon, but let's be honest, sometimes silence is avoidance. Sometimes it's fear in disguise. So ask yourself, is this silence rooted in power, or am I afraid to speak my truth? Because the Stoic path isn't about suppressing your voice. It's about using it intentionally. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is no. Sometimes silence means letting go. Other times, it means finally standing up for yourself, for your standards, for your future. Use discernment. Let your silence be rooted in clarity, not cowardice. 5. What would it look like to live without needing validation? This is the hardest one, because deep down, we all want to be seen, to be understood, to be acknowledged. But here's the truth. The more you chase validation, the more you dilute your power. The Stoics didn't need the crowd. They didn't wait for applause. They were rooted in their values, not the opinions of others. So what would your life look like if you stopped needing permission? If you trusted your inner compass? If you stopped asking, do they get it? And started declaring, I get it, and that's enough? That's when you become untouchable. That's when you start living, not for revenge, not for recognition, but for alignment. Let's return to something we said at the very beginning of this journey. The best revenge is no revenge. Just become untouchable. And now, after everything we've explored, you know why? Because revenge is temporary. Validation fades. Apologies don't always come. But peace is eternal. Peace is the reward for those who rise without bitterness. Peace is the crown of those who chose mastery over madness. Peace is what remains when you've stopped reacting and started creating. So here's the final truth. You don't need to win the argument. You need to win yourself back. And when you do, when you finally stop fighting the old story and start writing a new one, you'll realize something beautiful. You didn't need revenge. You needed rebirth, and you created it silently, consistently, powerfully. Now let them wonder. Let them whisper. Because you've stopped explaining. You've stopped performing. You've stopped waiting. You're too busy building something they can't touch. And that's the most powerful revenge of all. There's a chapter in every story where the hero stops running from the past and starts running toward something greater. That chapter is not marked by a grand announcement or a viral moment or a dramatic comeback. It's marked by stillness, a morning when you wake up, and for the first time, the wound doesn't feel like a storm cloud above your head. The memory no longer has its claws in your heart. The past no longer echoes in your present, not because you forgot, but because you're no longer available to that frequency. You've grown. That's what real healing feels like, not loud, not flashy, but solid. Subtle. It's single quotes S in the way you say no without guilt. It's in the way you walk away without explaining yourself. It's in the way you stop waiting for justice and just become too busy building something beautiful. Because when you've tasted true peace, you won't trade it for petty victories ever again. Let's talk about that in concrete terms. There are 5 signs that you've truly outgrown the need for revenge and embraced the Stoic life of self-mastery. Not theory, not performance, embodied transformation. Point 1. You no longer crave the final word you used to rehearse it in your head, the perfect response, the flawless explanation, the closing sentence that would finally make them realize what they lost. But now, you don't care about the last word because you've discovered the power of the next chapter. You no longer feel the need to prove your side because your life speaks so clearly that no commentary is necessary. You've come to realize some people aren't equipped to hear your truth, and that's okay. You didn't change your life to convince them. You changed it to become who you were meant to be. Point 2. You can witness their life without flinching. This one's tough. Maybe you see them online, thriving, laughing, moving on, and a part of you wants karma to catch up. You want life to humble them. But here's the plot twist. You no longer need them to fall in order to rise. You don't need them to fail in order to feel free, because your joy isn't conditional on their misery anymore. That's when you know you've transcended the drama, when you can see them happy and feel nothing, not bitterness, not regret, just neutrality, because your story is no longer about them. It's about you. 3. You have more energy than you've had in years. When you're stuck in cycles of revenge, bitterness, and emotional obsession, you leak energy. Every thought is heavy. Every interaction feels like a performance. Every moment is laced with mental fog. But when you finally let go, when you redirect that energy back into your mission, your health, your craft, you come alive. Your mind gets sharper. Your body gets stronger. Your spirit gets lighter. People around you start to notice. They ask, "What changed?" And the answer is simple. I stopped bleeding for people who never asked how deep the wound went. You reclaimed your energy. And now, it's building something real. 4. You no longer want to be understood. You want to be elegant. You used to crave understanding. If they could just see your heart, if they could just realize how much they hurt you, then maybe, just maybe, you could be at peace. But now, you don't chase understanding. You chase alignment. You'd rather be misunderstood in silence than understood in a situation that no longer serves your growth. Because here's the hard truth. The people who truly love you won't need convincing. And the ones who require your pain in order to stay, let them go. Your healing doesn't need an audience, just a decision. 5. You've transformed your pain into a blueprint. This is the final sign, the most beautiful one. You don't just survive the pain anymore. You use it to lead, to serve, to teach, to love better, to set sharper boundaries, to build systems that protect your peace and amplify your purpose. Your pain didn't just end. It evolved. It became the raw material for something sacred. And now, People come to you not because you're perfect, but because you're proof that you can rise without revenge, that you can suffer and still show up with dignity, that you can be betrayed and still walk in grace, that you can be misunderstood and still live with clarity. Let's be honest, that's what makes someone magnetic. Not their accomplishments, not their wealth, not their resume. It's their presence, their calm, their silence that speaks louder than noise ever could. So here's the question. What do you want your presence to say before you even open your mouth? Because your energy enters the room before your voice ever does. And if you've done the work, your presence will speak peace. Groundedness. Vision, stillness. Not because life was easy, but because you chose your response. That's the Stoic power in motion. And now, as we near the final step in this journey, let's pause for a moment and look back, not to dwell, not to ache, but to honor. Honor the version of you who kept walking through the fire. Honor the one who didn't lash out when it would have been easier. Honor the one who chose healing over noise, clarity over chaos, and purpose over petty applause. You've earned your peace. You didn't beg for it. You built it. So let that be the new story. Not one of revenge, but of resilience. Not one of collapse, but of calm. Not one of returning to the pain, but of rising from it so completely that it no longer fits your life anymore. Let them wonder. Let them whisper. You've got work to do. You've got mountains to climb, kingdoms to build, peace to protect, a future to author. And this time, you won't be writing it from pain. You'll be writing it from power. You've come this far. 12 sections, thousands of words, but more importantly, 1,000 emotional shifts. Not just about revenge, not just about silence, but about what it really means to reclaim your power in a world that constantly tries to distract you, provoke you, diminish you. Let's pause here, not to reflect, but to realize that you are not the person who started this journey. You're not just someone who was hurt. You're not someone stuck in a cycle of overthinking, waiting, proving, or punishing. You are someone who now understands something most people never learn, that revenge is noise, but mastery is music, and it plays in silence. It's time to step into that silence, not as emptiness, but as presence, because in the Stoic path, silence is not what you retreat to, it's what you become. Let's bring together every lesson, every truth we've explored, and now let it reshape your identity, not just your mindset. 1. You are the architect of your inner world. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts," which means that no matter who wronged you, no matter what storm hit, you still get to choose the palette of your life. Is it painted with bitterness, or is it brushed with grace? Is it filled with chaos, or composed with clarity? You are not a passive canvas. You are the artist, and every thought you allow, every reaction you resist, every boundary you set, it all becomes your masterpiece. So, choose your colors well. 2. You don't need permission to be free. We wait far too long for people to set us free, for an apology, for acknowledgement, for closure, for karma. But here's the truth you've now earned. You don't need anyone to open the gate. The door was never locked. Freedom is internal. It's a choice, not a reward. It doesn't come from them, it comes from you deciding, I will not be emotionally enslaved by people who no longer have a seat in my life. That's not pride, that's wisdom. Because the moment you stop waiting for someone else to validate your release, you're already free. 3. Your stillness is your strategy when the world tries to provoke you. Gossip, rejection, mind games. The ego's instinct is to react, clap back, explain, over-clarify, defend. But the Stoic knows that stillness is not passivity. Stillness is power under control. You can burn without screaming. You can move without rushing. You can win without making noise. Stillness doesn't mean you're ignoring what happened. It means you've matured beyond the need to respond to it. Let your stillness be unsettling. Let your peace be confusing. Let your absence be the final word. 4. The life you build is the only closure you need. Maybe you never got the apology. Maybe they never looked back. Maybe they moved on, built a new chapter, and never once acknowledged the damage they left behind. Let it go, because the life you are about to build, the clarity, the strength, the discipline, the radiance it will speak so loudly, you'll realize they were never worthy of a response. You didn't just survive them. You surpassed them. You didn't crumble. You created. And creation is the most sacred form of closure there is. 5. The new you doesn't chase. The new you chooses. The old you might have begged for clarity, chased apologies, craved justice. The new you choose. You choose who gets access. You choose where your energy flows. You choose what gets a reaction and what gets removed. You're no longer walking into every room hoping to be accepted. You walk in already centered, because when you're aligned with your values, your habits, your mission, approval becomes irrelevant. And the people who still don't see your worth, they're not blind. They're just not invited. 6. You're not here to be understood. You're here to be undeniable. Stop trying to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Your reputation is not what people say. It's what your life proves. So live in such a way that your name carries a weight that can't be diminished by whispers. Be so disciplined, so internally clear, that even your silence commands respect. The Stoics didn't post their victories. They embodied them. Let your lifestyle do the talking. Let your presence be the punctuation. You don't need recognition to be real. You need truth to be unshakable. 7. This isn't the end. It's the return to self. This journey was never just about how to deal with betrayal or pain. It was about coming home to the version of you that was never dependent on revenge, the version of you that doesn't perform for validation, the version of you that is steady, resilient, powerful, not because life was easy, but because you chose not to let difficulty define you. You remembered who you are. You remembered your voice, your silence, your strength. You remembered that real power isn't in the performance, it's in the presence. Let's end where we began. The best revenge is no revenge. Just become untouchable. And now you are. Not because you built walls, but because you built depth. Not because you shouted louder, but because you stood stronger. Not because you punished them, but because you healed you. So go. Live quietly. Build relentlessly. Love intentionally. Speak rarely, but when you do, let it land. Because when you rise like this, slowly, steadily, stoically, you don't just win, you transcend. Let them whisper. Let them wait. You've got better things to do. Sweet dreams.